Hi everybody, welcome along to another one of these Rangers Rabble book author interview things that we do from time to time. To the members that are watching this live on Tuesday night, welcome along. For everybody else that's got it on YouTube when we release it on Thursday, thanks very much for your time. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined tonight by a gentleman I'm quite happy to call a friend of mine, because I've known Jeff quite a long time. Jeff Holmes, the author of this magnificent new book, The Alfie Conn Story, What's It All About? But before we start telling you what it's all about, Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself to the watching people and tell them a little bit about yourself and some of the other books that you've written, because you're quite a prolific author, particularly Rangers author.
Yeah, thanks, Wilf. Good to be in the show. Always good to get a chance to talk, because my wife says I like talking, so she's getting a wee bit of peace at the moment, peace and quiet. But I remember a couple of years ago when I did the Alex Totten book, and Alex was on the show that's done by Stuart Cosgrove and Tam Cowan. It was Off the Ball, I think. Yeah. And he was on that one Saturday morning, and he said, I've got a book out, lads. And Stuart Cosgrove, because he's obviously a St Johnstone man, and he says, and Alex was manager of St Johnstone, he says, oh, that's great. He went, who's written it with you? And he says, it's Jeff Holmes. And Tam Cowan says, another one? He says, is that no 5 years I do it this year? You know, so I suppose to say I'm prolific is probably bang on the money, but quite often what I'll do is I'll work on 3 or 4 books at the same time. If I'm working for somebody like Alfie on a book, or Alex Totten or Mark Walters, whatever, then that's priority. But I've always got other projects going in the background. Like just now, I've got a book about Rangers, arguably Rangers' greatest ever side from 1898-99 in the Victorian times, when they won every single league match, all 18 of them. So I've been working on that on and off for about 4 years now. So that's kind of what I do. And I've also working on another project on a guy called Jimmy Spears, who was killed during the First World War, who played for Rangers, Bradford City and Maryhill, my 3 teams. So I'm from Maryhill, 64 years old, from Maryhill. I used to go in the John Gregg Loyal, so that was my first supporters bus when I was 10. First game was there, United away. Before that, I used to go and see Thistle, because we lived across the road from Firhill. We met one of my mates one night, and you go to the game tomorrow? Aye, see you at Firhill. No, I'm going to Ayr United v Rangers. Asked my mum for money. Went to that game, won the sweep, £1. Came back to the chippy after the game, and as per the agreement we'd had, we got 2 10-bob notes, and we had 1 each. Didn't tell my man, get it doing. Wasn't allowed to go to games for ages after that. So I learned quite a valuable lesson. My first Rangers game. So ever since then, obviously, Rangers fan, season ticket holder, minor shareholder at one point, ran a Rangers supporters team in the Scottish Supporters League for quite a number of years. Ran a supporters bus for Maryhill, Sandbank, Rangers Sports Club. So always, like yourself, Wilf, it's my life, you know. And you kind of fit everything else in round about it. But the book side, the first book I did was nothing to do with Rangers, and then I did a wee one in Maryhill. But the first Rangers one I think I done was on Jock Wallace, because he was just such a favourite of mine, such a huge favourite of mine. And the reason I did Jock Wallace was because I think it was my first job was in Scottish television, and I was the boy making the tea in the store at 16. And the security men used to always tell me if there's celebrities coming in, because I had an autograph book, a really good autograph book at the time. And he said, oh, your team's coming in. I think it was 1978, and I think Rangers were coming in to watch PSV Eindhoven. That's what they used to do. Now they can watch videos and stuff, or watch whatever they want anywhere, anytime. But they used to hire out the conference room in Scottish television in Cowcaddens, and they would book that, and then they would all come in, the players, the manager, the coach, and they would get their tea provided, and they would sit and watch a video of their opponents, so they knew a wee bit about them. And this was ahead of I'm sure it was a PSV Eindhoven match, which was coincidentally my first away match in Europe. And I was 17, and I always remember the team going to the security man, and I says, he says, the team's all in. He says, you've missed them. And I says, I had to go and do a job there. Next minute, a taxi pulls up, and the taxi door opens, and Jock Wallace comes running out, and he gets to the front door, and Jock Wallace doesn't like being late, you know, he wants to try and set an example. So I've got this quick dilemma. Do I stop this man mounting in his tracks and ask for his autograph, or do I just step out his way, let the whirlwind past? Don't know whether I get the Brave Pills from, but I stopped him and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Wallace," and he sort of skidded to a halt like a cartoon character with the dust coming off his shoes. And I said, "Can I have your autograph, please?" He went, "Of course, son, of course." And he signed it. "What's your name?" "Jeff." Signed my name. He says, "Did you get all the players?" And I says, "No, I missed them. I was away doing a job." And he says, "Come on." And he took me into the conference room, and I was a bag of nerves because that was my heroes, you know. And it was all these guys that I'd watched playing. Well, I was watching playing at the time. And he went in there, and they were all looking as if to say, "Is this a new signing? Is this a youth policy, Mr. Wallace?" And he said, "Right, before we watch this, put your tea down and sign your autograph for Big Jeff here." He says, "He's only a boy," he says, "but he's a big boy," he says, "so you better sign your autograph." And it was great. The guys were all fantastic. And that's my only ever time I met Jock Wallace, and it was just a really happy memory. And the first book I did was on Jock, and it was really good because his family got to know about I was doing it, and they sent me photographs, all the photographs for Jock when he was a kid and when he was in the army and stuff like that. So they sent some great photographs over, and I became friends with Jock's son, John, and his son, young John, who's a massive Rangers fan. And the family are all real massive Rangers. And even, Jock's widow as well. I keep in touch with her as well. So that was a good one to start with, you know, and we had a signing in the Rangers shop, and the Barcelona Bears were there, and it was just fantastic. And since then, I've did about 22 or 23, so I better not give the same amount of time each to each one of them as I've did for that one, Will, for we'll never get through anything. So I've written a lot. jeffholmes.co.uk, they're all on a virtual bookshelf there. So
yeah, I think I've actually got most of them. I won't say I've read them all because, as I said to you, I'm not
Sure.
a prolific reader of books, but I do like buying a Rangers book. So I've got. I mean, my missus always says to me when they arrive, "There's another book you're not going to read." So, I mean, I just the Rangers book. I'm buying it. And now I'm in the situation thanks to Pitch Publishing. They tend to send me them.
Sure.
So the ones that they send me that I do read, because I do read them before I speak to guys like yourself, because
Sure.
you know I want to know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So how did the Alfie Conn book come about then? How did you know Alfie before? I mean,
No.
obviously he wouldn't have been at STV in 1978 because he'd gone somewhere else by then. So
he was at Spurs 78, was he? No,
78 he would have been across the other side.
He might. I can't remember. Honestly, I've just finished the book and I can't remember. But the first time I met Alfie was a big pal of mine, Bobby Roddy, says to me, I was working in the Daily Record at the time, and Bobby Roddy phoned me and says, "Get yourself across to the Hilton." I was doing a Jock Wallace book at the time. He says, get yourself across to the Hilton. I says, I'm working. He says, make an excuse, leave, get yourself across to the Hilton. So I kind of feigned a dental pain, and my boss says, "You better go and get that seen to you." So I went across to the Hilton, and Bobby met me and took me up the stairs, and I said, "Where are we going?" He went, "All the Barcelona Bears are there." He says, "They're in that room signing memorabilia." So Colin Jackson, the late Colin Jackson's wife, Pam, came out and she said, "Jeff, Bobby's briefed me. He says you want to interview all the players for your book on Jock Wallace." And I says, "Absolutely." Again, I was just like, I mean, this is only a few years ago, but I was still at a wee boy in a sweet shop because these boys were just my heroes. These guys were my heroes. So one by one they came out. It was Tommy McLean, Willie Matheson, Peter McCloy, Willie Johnston, just who's who at Rangers Football Club. Alfie Conn came out, and I thought, I think I should interview him. I'm talking to the wee devil in my shoulder. I'm saying, I should interview him. He played for Celtic. Because I was a massive Alfie Conn fan. So you can imagine I was really gutted when he went down to Spurs. It was okay because players move on. Wee Bud had moved on, Steenie had moved on, and then Alfie moved on, and that was fine. So that was the only other time I met Alfie, and he was a real gentleman. And it was I think it was about a year ago. I was talking to Stan Gordon that owns Stonefield Tavern in Blantyre.
Yeah, I know Stan. Yeah,
and Stan's good pals with Alfie. And Stan says to me, he says, "I think Alfie's ready now." And I says, "What for, Stan?" And he says, "For his book, to tell his story." And he says, "I know that he's knocked back a few people because he never ever wanted to do it. He never wanted to put himself out there. He did what he did back in the day, and he's just kind of retreated, into his shell, and that's him." But then 3 years ago, this coming November, his wife passed away of motor neuron disease, and it was. He said she suffered for 5 years. It was the most hellish thing. And it just not only clearly took its toll on his wife, Sue, it took its toll on Alfie. And their 2 kids, Stephen and Samantha. But Alfie was there. Alfie lived there, and he was there every day. And he says, and I can see it in him, can see it in his face. And it just absolutely finished him. And the last thing he wanted to do was relive any memories, football memories, because he just lost his wife. But then about 6 months ago, he decided to have a night in his local pub in Coatbridge, Carson's bar, which is a Rangers bar. And he got all the Barcelona Bears there, and it shows you what they think of him, because like Dave Smith travelled during the week to Aberdeen, or even apparently it's quite a bit away in the wilderness.
It is, so,
yep. And so all these guys came from far and wide, and they had a great night. They raised a few grand, and that went to MND Scotland. And I think Alfie thought, if I can do anything to help, sufferers at MND, try and find a cure, whatever, every pound I raise is a pound closer. And he thought, what, I could maybe write a book. And he spoke to Stan, and Stan spoke. I'm quite pally with Stan, so Stan spoke to me, and we got together. So I met him in Costa in Coatbridge, near his house, and we sat down, and I says, Alfie, there's something I need to get off my chest before I even start talking to you. So obviously, I says, why did you sign for them? I says, I wasn't happy. I says, you really, really, really annoyed me at the time. And he was like, here we go again. But we had a laugh about it, and listen, I'm no one for holding grudges. So you just got on with it, and life's too short and all that stuff. And anyway, Rangers is very important to us, but when it comes to your family and comes to diseases like that, then there's no comparison, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, motor neuron disease is very close to me, because unfortunately I lost my mother to it in 1986. She'd suffered for 10 years.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Will.
It's a long time ago. She was 39 years old at the time. I was just before I turned 18.
She was 39. She
was 39. She suffered for 10 years. So I mean, it means a lot to me. The fact that Alfie's doing this as well is another reason I want to get this podcast done.
Sure.
Because if we can shift a few copies of this book on the back of this to help motor neuron disease, fantastic, because it's horrible. It's more in the public domain now because of the amount of famous people, if you like, particularly sportsmen, who, I mean, obviously we're on Fernando Rickson, Doddy Weir, there's lots and lots of them, you know what I mean? And it's a hellish disease. I was aware that Alfie's wife had passed away. I didn't know it was motor neuron disease, because I was introduced to Alfie at a Rangers dinner at the hotel in Cambridge Street, which keeps changing its name. It was, I think, the Hilton at the time, and it's been the Thistle, it's been everything else. A friend of mine from Perth knows Alfie, and he introduced me to him in the foyer of the hotel. And before I even said hello to him, somebody walked past and went, Alfie, why the fuck did you sign for them? And he just announced, like, I don't want to talk about it. And I knew then what he was going through, Yeah. And we were fortunate. We do a charity dinner for Erskine in Aberdeen. Start it once a year, and Alfie was up with the Barca Bears last year. First time we've had him up, and he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You know what I mean? I was interviewing the Barca Bears. Tom Miller hosts it for us, and he says, look, can you interview the boys? So I interviewed the boys, and Alfie said, look, can I tell this story? I said, there's a microphone, tell as many stories as you like. And he was absolutely brilliant. So to have it written down, and because I've had that interaction with him, reading the book, it's just Alfie talking. It's just, for me,
that means a lot to me, because it means I've got the voice right. Because every book has to have a voice. Yep. And I was told that there's a big lad that played for Sheffield Wednesday, midfielder. I can't remember. Oh God, his name escapes me. And just a working class boy, and it was apparently a professor that ghosted his book, but it was written in the professor's words and not the boy's words. And this boy came for the streets, and nobody could believe that was him speaking. And when I say to people, it's the voice that you hear when you're reading a book isn't so important, and you've just hit a nail on the head, Wilf, and that makes me happy, because it means I did my job.
Yeah, I mean, it's Alfie. It's Alfie. Alfie could have written that. You know what I mean? By the interaction I've had with him, which isn't a lot, to be fair. It's one night at a function in Aberdeen. Really, that's the only main interaction I've had with him. But I mean, the book itself, Jeff, you know what I mean, tremendous. It touches Alfie's career from obviously when he was born, when he grew up, all the way through. The thing that surprised me at the beginning was the fact that he openly said, look, he'd be a Rangers fan all his days. Now, that wouldn't surprise you, because it's clear he's a Rangers fan, but his dad played with Hearts.
That's right.
I find that quite stark, because you would think he would gravitate towards where his dad was famous.
I thought he was going to do that as well, Wilf, and I thought he was going to be a Hearts man, because the very first ground, as you'll read in the book, the very first ground he went to and played football at was, so I'm just turning that down, was Tynecastle. And it was the first place he looked up and thought, oh, this is a football. And it was like he said to me when he was at Ibrox, when he started, they used to train at Ibrox, sometimes they would run up and down the concrete steps when it was the big bowl. It was the first Ibrox I remember. And he said it was like a stairway to heaven because it went on forever. And I thought that was such a brilliant description. When he just looked and all you could see was it rising up to the clouds because there was no cover in the Celtic end at that time. But I think we all know that Rangers is. I mean, I live 10 minutes from the ground. I've jumped my car and I'm at Ibrox in 10 minutes, and I really do think so much of people like yourself and boys that come over from Northern Ireland and up from England, to Ibrox every other week. That really touches me because I think that's the true supporters that travel that distance. I can't help that I live 10 minutes away from it, so that's me. But Alfie was from Preston Pans, where I was on Saturday actually at the football, and beautiful wee town on the coast. But he says he couldn't wait to get away. I suppose it's the grass is always greener on the other side, I suppose. But no, all his youth football was clearly in Edinburgh, and then he started obviously coming through to Ibrox when he was 16, courtesy of the great Jimmy Miller, who I never saw play, but apparently was a brilliant player. Do you know what it reminded me of? Sorry to go off track here, but it reminded me of Ralphie Brand, who I interviewed for a book called Rangers in Russia, 1962, the tour. And I spoke to Ralphie about that, and I phoned him at his house, and he said to me, he went, I'm really sorry, Jeff, but I can't remember anything about that Russian tour. Not one thing. And I says, Ralphie, how often do you go to Russia? And that nobody went to Russia in those days. And he says to me, that was 60 years ago, and I was like, God, so it was, aye. And he says, if my wife was in, she would be able to tell you. I says, oh, was she there? He went, no, but I probably told her when I come back. And thinking in my feet, and I said, tell me about the day you signed for Rangers, Ralph. Who did you support? I says, you're obviously an Edinburgh boy. Did you support Hearts or Hibs? He went, no, I supported Rangers. He went, because my uncle was a Rangers supporter. He says, and he used to go to every game at Ibrox, the home games. He went, and then inevitably once a month he'd come back with a pennant or a photograph or a programme or a book, and he would give it to me. And I soon had this big collection of Rangers stuff, and that became my team. And that's how a lot of people will say your team's passed down to you by your father or your grandfather. I mean, my dad's a Thistle fan, so, and my grandfather's a St Mirren fan, so it's circumstances, isn't it? That's what happens. It's circumstances who you support, and his dad was never his dad was a Hearts man through and through,
Yeah, I mean we've got one or two of the members watching. There's one or two comments. Michael Charon, he's saying he thinks that Alfie's old man was in the Hearts side the first time he was taken to Ibrox, obviously for a Rangers Hearts game, and he remembers the boys coming back from the Russian tour and the reception they got at Abbott's Inch, and that is mentioned in the book because I've actually got a copy of the book that you mentioned. So, Michael, if you don't have that, get the Russian book.
Have you read it?
Oh, I've read that one. Yeah, that was an easy.
The thing is, the Michael's spot on because see the photographs really. The reason I did that book, and I'm away again, was that a guy called Murray Roxburgh from the Rangers Erskine appeal. He was
very good friend of mine.
Oh, he's great, Murray, and he was pals with Harold Davis. Yeah. And they used to go up to Harold's house now and again. And Harold gave him a photo album that he'd had in his loft for all these years since he came back. He took a box Brownie camera to Russia, and he took all these photographs of the tour, got them all printed and stuck them in an album, put them in his loft, and then says to Murray, look, I'm getting on, son. You take these and try and sell them for Erskine. So Murray came into the Daily Record to meet me and says, listen, I've got this. Do you think we could do something with this? So I was initially supposed to do it for Erskine and do a book based on these photographs, but it was a time when they were doing a huge dinner with Brian Laudrup, so they kind of put all their eggs in one basket. And he said, why don't you do it for the Rangers Former Players Benevolent Fund? So I got in touch with Colin Stewart and I did it for that, and it proved really successful. Although they still have copies left at £5, and it is a good bargain for £5, and it's a good story. But Ralphie Brand couldn't remember, so he just told me all about why he was a Rangers fan, the day he signed for Rangers, the players who played with Rangers. So if you look at that interview, you'll notice he doesn't say anything about Russia because he doesn't remember. But it was good to find out how he became a Rangers fan. That was because his uncle. So that was Alfie's was because of Jimmy Miller, Ralphie Brand's partner. So it's all these things are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about things like that. I'm going to go into. You've given me a good wee segue there into a couple of things in the book. that I noticed. I mean, there was a. I'm not going to do it chronologically because you've just thrown up the thing with the wee, the players together. The fact that he played, I think it was a reserve game against Clydebank, and Jimmy Caskey Jr. was playing for Clydebank, and obviously Jimmy Caskey played for Rangers in 1945. With some of the players that Alfie used to Alfie's dad used to play against.
That's right.
Just little things like that. Just and the fact that another game when he was playing a reserve game against Hearts, he was number 12 and his brother was number 12 for Hearts.
And they both of them come on. Do you think that's what I was going to say? Do you not think it's things like that make a book rather than saying he scored 2 in a 4-0 win against Aberdeen on a wet Tuesday night and blah blah blah? It's these wee anecdotes that for me it's these wee anecdotes that make the story, and if you join it all up properly, then I think it gives a more rounded picture of the subject rather than just matches and stuff.
Yep. Jeff, you're going to have a stalker. I think Michael says if you're 10 minutes from Ibrox, you're near him. He's just up Paisley Road West. I bet you'll drop by for a signed copy of the book.
Well, it means we're only 10 minutes from Ibrox. We'll meet at Ibrox at the John Gregg or the Walter Smith statue now. I've got the wee Walter on.
Yep.
Yeah. That's no problem at all. I'll do that, Michael.
Yep. So I mean, let's see. I mean, the Alfie book. It is. You're right. That's the sort of things that make the book for me. It's the little anecdotes. I mean, the very first thing I've written down here as a note was when Alfie went to sign for Rangers. He'd already signed a contract with Leeds.
That's right.
I had absolutely no idea about that. None at all. You know what I mean? And it's just little things like that. I mean, Alfie, as you've just said, we're going back a long time. We're going back 50 years, nearly. You know what I mean? I mean, when Alfie signed, when Alfie did the deed, I was 8 coming up 9 when he went across the city. So when he signed for for Rangers, I was only a little slip of a lad. So I don't remember Alfie as a player at all. But obviously you couldn't have something these days when a young player signed a contract with a club, phones the manager up and says, "Look, Rangers want me. I'm not coming to see you," and they just rip the contract up. That wouldn't happen today.
No, but first of all, do you not think it's you read? I think you read a book because you think maybe the subject's going to be interesting or it's somebody you like. But surely you read a book to find out things you don't know. If it's things in the papers about when he signed and when he did this, you know that. It's the stuff I want to try and, with the people I work with, I want to try and dig deep and try and get some stuff. And I must admit, I don't like writing books on young people because I don't feel as if they've lived their life yet and they've not got the stuff to tell. But the flip side of the coin is when I speak to people in their 70s and 80s, they've forgot everything. So it took me probably a year to write Alfie's book, and at least 7 months of that was research. And I would go to Alfie and I would say, "Alfie, that time you and your wife went to Canada, courtesy of the Canadian Supporters Club, and you were held up at the airport. What was all that about?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I would have thought that was quite a major storyline, but he couldn't remember. And so as soon as and then he went, "Oh God, aye," and then it came back to him, and so there was an awful lot of prompting going on. There was a lot of that. There's a boy I know, Willie Clark from Paisley, whose name on Facebook is Willie Jers, and he's got some good stuff. He's got other Rangers newses. So right away I'm over to Paisley and meeting Willie and getting all his Rangers newses off him and for the period. And I go through every single Rangers news. I went through every daily record for the period. I went through everything. I was on through all my programme collection at the time, because you get great wee stories in the programme sometimes. And I just had to know everything I could about Alfie Conn, because I've got worst memory in the world, Will. So people will say to me, "Oh, what about that time we were playing Motherwell and it was a Tuesday night at Fir Park and he scored in the last minute a winner?" And I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I was here, but I have no idea what you're talking about." So it was a case of, for me, research, prompt, drag it out his head, and then it get it onto the page. So
but I mean that's why that's why you're the author. You're to me, you're doing the research. You're getting the stuff out of him. But as I said, you're still writing it the way he would say it.
That's so important.
Which to me is absolutely fantastic. It really is. I mean, other things that I dragged out the book was, again, going back to, names and things he didn't know. He made his debut against Dundalk in a European game over in Dundalk. Now you can find that out if you look at if you look at a team like. But what you won't find out is who he came on for.
That's right.
And we replaced the now Sir Alex Ferguson.
Sir Alex Ferguson. That's right.
That blows my mind. Absolutely. I mean, because again, I'm too young to remember that period, and I knew that Ferguson played with Rangers, but the fact that Alfie's debut was coming on for him, that absolutely blows my mind. That's the sort of thing that I like to take out of a book, little things like that. And that day coming back, I think it was coming back in the plane, Alfie had sat with Orion Persson. Yep.
And he had a chat about him, and Orion Persson was telling him all about the boy that was supposed to be marking him during the game and how he dealt with that and how he laughed about it and gave the boy a sweetie and stuff. And you're like, that's just madness. And first and foremost, I love hearing all these stories. So, and because I was a journalist for so long, you tend to notice what a story is, and you pick up on something. You might let something go, let a couple of things go, and then pick up on something else and expand on it. And I've learned that since I started writing books, that make something big out the big bits or potentially big bits.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, for me, there's so many little things in the book. I don't want to go on too much about them because the whole point is we want people to buy the book. So we have got another couple of comments. Michael's doing his thing here. He says he will meet you and get a signed copy of it. He says his favourite memory of Alfie is that goal in the 73 Cup final now. Although I was only a young man at the time, a young boy at the time, and had no recollection of it live, I've certainly seen it a few times. And I can in my mind, I still see Alfie running through and sticking that ball in the back of the net.
It's if you've read the book, there's a photograph in the book. There's a photo, as a kind of general comment, there's a photograph in the book of that goal, right? And you see Billy McNeil sitting on his backside.
Yep.
So if you've read the book, you'll know the significance of that. That photograph for me told such a story that you'll only know if you've read the book. Yep. And like Michael, I've watched that goal a few times on YouTube. I couldn't really remember it, to be honest. I was at the match. I was in the Rangers end. I remember that. I was 12 years old, and I was with a couple of my pals. And there was only about 20, 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds gone in the second half. And the thing is, Alfie was really struggling at half time. And it looked like he was going to come off. And the manager says, no, stay on. I think that's in the book. Stay on and see what you can do. And then after 40 seconds, cut a young ball through. Yep. Derek Parlin flicks it on, and Alfie's off and trotting, and it's 2-1. And incredible. Yep. I mean, the crowd that day was just phenomenal. 123,000 or something.
Yeah, something ridiculous like that. Yeah. I've got another question here from a regular contributor to the podcast now. Ian, Mike, I'll answer this question. Buy the book and read the book because the title of the book is explained in the book. So that's how you'll find out how you came about, what's it all about as a title.
If I can just say, it's nothing to do with Michael Caine. That's all I'll say. Nothing to do with Michael Caine. Was that no one of his films?
If you say so. I'm far too young to remember Michael Caine. And another question for you, Jeff. Sorry to throw all these questions at you.
No.
From one of our podcast guys, guy that does our Rangers Women's show with me, Brian, lives up in Forest. He says, which autobiography was your favourite, as in the amount of things you didn't know that you found out when you were writing it? So of the books you've written, it's taken off the Alfie bit a little bit.
Of course, no, it's absolutely fine.
From the books you've written, which one did you find out the most things about you didn't know?
I think because you invest so much time and effort and energy into an autobiography, let's say it's a year, let's say it takes a year out of your life, so it's quite a lot of time and energy. I've loved every single one of them, but probably the one I learned most about was Alex Totten's. And Alex Totten, for the younger viewers, was a manager of Falkirk, St Johnstone, all these teams. Started his career at Liverpool under Bill Shankly, but my interest was piqued when he was assistant manager at Jock Wallace in the mid-80s, just before Souness came in. He was assistant manager for, I think it was 2.5 to 3 years. And when I went, I arranged to go through and speak to Alex at Falkirk Stadium because he was commercial director there latterly. And I wanted to speak to him about Jock, just to see how Jock had been, and just to let him contribute to the book. And I found him just an absolutely charming man, just a lovely, lovely guy, Alex. And we finished. He took me up into I interviewed him in the canteen or the cafe at Falkirk's Park, and there was a game going on outside. I think it was just a under 18s game or something. And we sat there, and it was just so relaxed, and we were talking away. And he told me everything about Jock, and he was almost too happy to tell me everything. And then he says to me at the end, we were just sitting chatting. He says, "You can do my book next, Jeff." And I thought, the problem is, Alex isn't one of the. Although I think he's probably one of Scotland's greatest ever managers in terms of getting St Johnstone when they were second bottom of the bottom league and taking them up to the top 6 in the Premier League. That's incredible. That's an incredible feat. And what he's done for a lot of teams, even Falkirk, getting them to the cup final and things. But it was just, I thought to myself, at that point, I thought I want to write about the Mark Walters and the Jock Wallace and these guys. And then I thought, and the more Alex talked to me, the more I thought, God, this guy's an incredible life. And you don't actually realise until you sit and speak to somebody how interesting they are. And I thought, and he was telling me all these stories, and he gave me his card. And a few weeks after I finished Jock Wallace, a few weeks after that, I gave him a call and I says, Alex, I think we should sit and have a meeting and maybe have lunch and sit and chat, and you can tell me lots of things. And he just told me story after story after story. And he says to me, he grew up in Falkirk. He grew up in, I think it was Denny or Dunny Pace, Denny Lone Head or something. And he was a Falkirk fan, but his dad was a big Rangers fan. And Alex, his dad would take him through or his uncle would take him through to Ibrox quite a lot. And they liked Rangers, they liked the big stadium. So you could say it was more or less, he was a Falkirk fan with a big leaning towards Rangers until Rangers went through to Falkirk to play in a Scottish Cup tie, and all the players, Alex was only 9 or 10, and all the players used to go to this hotel for a pre-match meal. Then they'd come out and get the bus. And he was waiting for his hero. His absolute hero was a guy called Sammy Baird. Yeah. And a kind of midfield player at Rangers. And he waited, and he says, he seen him, and he went, there he is. And he came out and went, excuse me, Mr. Baird, can I have your autograph? And he went, he told me F off, basically, and pushed him out the way. And Alex was distraught, absolutely distraught. But it obviously didn't spoil his love for Rangers, but he was just coming out with all these stories all the time. And I thought, I think there's something here. And then he nearly died of poisoning over in Portugal when he was playing golf. And they were, if he'd been a Catholic, he'd probably got his last rites. I don't know if he's got last rites, and he was in a bad way. And he survived. And then Walter Smith took his job at Ibrox when Walter came in with Graham Souness, and Tots had left him a wee note, and then they became pals and started going on holiday together, and then him and all the stories with him and Jock. He just did it starting under Shankly at Liverpool. He had a great story, so I probably learned more about him than anybody else from the biographies.
Yeah, see, that surprises me, because I would have thought it would be somebody like Davy Meiklejohn, who I know you did a book on Davy.
Aye.
Because that's way back in the
of course
the 20s, and you don't kind of know that you don't know anything personal on those things, because obviously even you weren't about then. You know what I mean?
Just no more. But that's the thing. I mean, when I worked in the Daily Record, they had these great archives in the bottom floor, on the ground floor, and it had every copy of the Daily Record, Sunday Mail, Evening News, all these different papers, and these huge archives that you had them all in the vaults, And I would go in there every morning at 7. I started work at 9, and I'd go in at 7 every morning and just look through all the old papers, the stuff. So I was finding out about Davy Meiklejohn, Sam English, all these guys. And then my interest obviously peaked, and it went further back to the early Victorian times, or the mid-Victorian times. So that was fascinating. So I didn't really know much about Davy Meiklejohn. I mean, I found out that he stayed in Copeland Road, 188 Copeland Road, when he was captain of Rangers. He stayed up close. I mean, that's just phenomenal. Bill Struth was the next block. You're like, how did that happen? But the whole history of Rangers just completely fascinates me. And maybe it's just a distraction tactic to get away from the rubbish that's going on just now. So, we can always look back and win trophies again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to say, before everybody that's watching this starts turning off, Jeff worked at the Daily Record when it was a reputable publication.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
No, he's no longer there, and it's no longer reputable. So it's okay. You can stick with us, folks. Brian's come in with another question, and obviously Brian hasn't read the book, because I know he hasn't read the book. I'm not even sure Brian can read, to be perfectly honest. Was Alfie quite candid, furnishing you with stories, especially at the time when he signed for the other side? Now, for me, I don't want you to tell the story about when he signed for the other side, because the reason that he signed has fascinated me, because I was under the impression that the reason that he signed was only 2 clubs could afford him, and we didn't want him back, and he went to them because it was the only other club in Scotland. I didn't think he'd any offers from anywhere else, but he did have offers from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And there was one specific reason he signed for them. And I don't want you to tell what it is, because, again, it's in the book.
But if Brian can't read, then I can maybe look at getting an audio version.
Well, he's from Forest. I don't even think they've got electricity, so you need to send up batteries for him as well. Sorry, Brian.
I'll talk him through it. But he was very candid, and I said, because I said to him at the start, like I say to everybody that I'm going to write a book on, Wilf, I say to them, see if there's something you want to leave out, because you know it's going to upset somebody, or it's going to open a can of worms, and maybe relationships are going to be destroyed because of it. Leave it out. But just don't tell me any lies. Just tell me the truth. Let's tell the truth. Now, if I can say this, there's a book coming out very soon. David Murray's bringing the book out. I don't know if you know. David Murray's bringing the book out. So I would hope that would dispel a few myths, but let's wait and see.
Yeah.
As I say.
You're not involved in that one, are you?
No. I don't think I could be, honestly. The whole thing just caused us so much grief and animosity, and I'm not saying for a minute that David Murray's the sole one to blame or anything. There was obviously a few people to blame, but he played his part in it. Now he'll obviously tell his side of the story, but sadly Craig White's already told his side of the story, although I haven't read it. Have you read Craig White's?
No.
No.
I've no intention of doing it either. So.
I wouldn't read it in a matter of principle, but no. What I will say is that when I bring a book out and I speak to the subject, I'll say to them, look, don't be economical with the truth. Just tell me the truth, and we'll just go for it. And if there is anything you want to leave out, we'll leave it out, and we'll move on to something else. And Alfie, as I've got to know over the last 9 months to a year, is probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Well, he really is, as you say, you've met him yourself. He's just a genuine guy. What you see is what you get. He doesn't want to give you any bullshit or any rubbish. And we spoke. Obviously, we had to speak. We spoke about everything. The hardest part was speaking about his wife, because that took at least to the 5th interview before he could even listen to her name. It just broke down every time, and we had to stop. But and you've read the book, so you'll know that the final chapter is quite heavy.
Very much so. Yeah.
And that's the only chapter of the book Alfie's read. It's the only chapter he's read, and he said it took him days to get through it, and the tears in the page and stuff like that. So, but he was very candid about his time going to Celtic. I just said to him, just be honest with me. Let's just talk through. We're going to talk through your whole life and your whole career in chronological order. Then we'll work it into the book at some point. And we spoke about the Celtic. We spoke about the Celtic thing. Or Blackpool or Hearts or any other clubs.
Yeah, I mean, haven't read it. I think he's been very candid about his entire career, because he's very honest about everything. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't realise how much he'd been injured. You know what I mean? He was basically permanently injured, almost permanently injured half his career. You know, which is probably why he only spent a certain amount of time at clubs, and it was just ridiculous.
That would get you down itself.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
so sad.
Sorry, I didn't know he was only 24 when he signed for Celtic. You know what I mean? I'd no concept of that. I'd heard about it, and you know, because it's just.
You would have thought he was older. That's right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Given that he how well known he was at Rangers, then he went to Spurs for 3 years, and they loved him.
That's right.
You would think, well, he must have been older than 24 when he signed for them, but he was 24. You know what I mean? Then he ended up at Hearts and at Blackpool, and
that's right.
And what's absolutely fascinating, and something I'd like to ask him if I ever get a chance to speak to him again, is he still banned from playing football in America?
Brilliant. What a great line. He'll probably tell you he is. Unless I'm saying that, if the rules are passed down from generation to generation, he probably is. But the guy that, I thought that was disgraceful, honestly. And again, that's another good line, as is, without giving too much away, as is the Spanish bit and the Mexican bit as well. There's so much in there that, you know, in the indoor football as well. It's just, I think you're right. I was very worried at the start because it's the first book I've ever written that was 25 quid. And I think that's a lot of money for a book.
But that, sorry to cut across you, Jeff, that seems to be the standard that the publishers are putting books out right now, because everything's going up in price.
I know.
I mean, having done 4 of these with Davy Herd, who's written, a number of books. He did the Tory Gillick book. It's coming out at 25 quid as well, because that's just what the publishers are putting them out at, because everything's costing a lot more money. You know what I mean?
Well, when I looked in the website, I looked in Pitch Publishing's website, and I didn't tell them this, but when I looked in Pitch Publishing's website, and I seen it was 25 quid, and after I'd come down off the ceiling and thought, how am I going to ask my mates for 25 quid for a book? But after I thought, you know what? I missed my deadline. I missed my deadline 2 or 3 times, which I always do. But then I kept writing. And normally, I'll have 80,000 words in a book. I think it's 105,000 or something. So I like to think that people got a bit extra for a bit more value for money. And then we gave the bookmark, and Alfie will sign them, and we'll get free postage. And so it's a lot of people have said, look, take the 25 quid, put the other 3 quid to motor neuron disease, whatever. And so many people have done that, and so we're going to have a good chunk of money for MND, which Alfie's delighted about. But somebody said to me that they thought the book was worth 25 quid. I still struggle to get my head around that, but
then again, that's a nice thing, because to me, 25 quid is a lot of money for a book. That's worth every single penny of it, right?
Thanks very much.
It's worth every single penny, but everything's going up in price. I mean, if you think, that book probably 10 years ago would have maybe been, 12 or 13 quid, right?
That's
maybe.
right.
You know what I mean? But everything's gone, and it's going up at a hell of a rate of knots. It's not just going up to £1 a year or whatever. These things, especially since COVID, everything's accelerated. I mean, I've noticed that. Let's say, speaking to Davy Herd, he was mortified when Pitch said, "Look, it's 25 quid," because they set the price.
That's
as
right.
you know.
Well, we did event to do it.
You can't do that. They look, that's what we have to do it at. You know what I mean? And if that's what they have to do it at, people that regularly buy books know that, and they're okay to buy. They're okay to pay for it.
But don't you think it's different if that company's in the south of England, where maybe money's not as tight as it is up in Scotland or the north of England, and in London where they sell a lot of books, maybe they expect to pay 25 quid a book. I was just shocked, like Davy. I was just completely shocked, because I think he messaged me and he went, "Do you know the book's 25 quid?" And I says, I honestly can't believe it. It was just like, I mean, my mum bought 3 today, right? I always give her one and sign it for my author copies. And she wanted another 3. And I said, honestly, you can't have another 3 because they're too dear. And she says, no, what? She's 91, She went, I want another 3. I want one each for your 2 brothers and one for the guy next door to me, because he's a big Rangers fan. And he's older than her, right? And he says he was in the Founders Trail tour a few weeks ago. And I said, no. She went, I want to pay the right money because it's for charity. See, taking 75 quid off her, I felt as if I was robbing her, And I know I shouldn't do that, but it's just because. But I'm glad that you say it's worth it. I'm glad you said that.
Unfortunately, it's just the cost of stuff. I mean, we've got a comment from our Ian Thompson. He's saying that he's going to send a copy to his dad, who's retired in New Zealand. The best way to do it, Ian, I would suggest that you buy it, send it to yourself, and then you send it to New Zealand, because Amazon it probably never get there. So just buy. You can buy it. It is available on Amazon. So if you want to buy it on Amazon or get it from
what Ian can do is, I mean, Amazon obviously charge you the postage to New Zealand, which is really hefty. If Ian bought it off me, I can send it to. I mean, I'm sending one to Canada and one to Australia tomorrow. I can send it, and he'll get a bookmark. He'll get it signed, and he'll get 3 quid off the book.
There you go.
And I know it's no matter who charges the postage to New Zealand, it's going to be expensive. I'll tell you right now. There you go. Where is it? I've got Australia. Australia's £24. Can you see that, Wolf? Is that the right way?
I can't read it, but it's too small to read it. But yeah, I can see that. Yep.
There you go, Australia. Oh, Canada's 2022. So the first one's untracked and the second one's tracked. So I can do that. If no pressure, Ian, but if you want, I'll get Alfie to personalise the book and sign it.
He says he'll do that then. So
great, good stuff, Ian.
We'll have to get away for them. Obviously, people to get in touch with you.
It's using my email address. I do it through my email address, so I can do that.
You gave us a website address at the start of the podcast. We'll do that again at the end. Just contact Jeff through that, guys, and he'll sort you out signed copies of the book.
It should have been updated yesterday or today on the Alfie Conn book, so my the email address will be on that.
Yeah.
So, but it's a problem, and it's 25 quid to send a book to Australia. It's 25 quid for the book. It's 50 quid. It's a lot of money, but I suppose that if you're living over there, then you've got to expect to be.
And if you're shipping stuff over there to family all the time, you know these things cost. It's not somebody, it's not somebody trying to take a rise out of you or whatever. That's what the cost of it is. So
but when you mentioned Amazon there, did you think maybe Amazon will send it from New Zealand?
No, Amazon would send it to New Zealand, but of course. And they would probably
charge a few quid for.
They're up the ante, and you've got no tracking of it or anything like that. So you know what I mean. So if you get in touch with Jeff will sort you out.
The other thing is as well with Amazon, Alfie wasn't happy with Amazon, but Amazon are about, and that's it. They're not going anywhere. They rule the world. But with us, there's money off the postage. There's a free bookmark. There's Alfie signing it, and there's a donation going to MND Scotland. So Amazon wouldn't be doing any of these. So it might be a couple of pounds cheaper in the long run, but it wouldn't be a lot cheaper, and we'll give the extras. So anyway, enough self.
There is a downside about the bookmark, folks. That he's in the three strips of the main clubs that you played in, so you might want to cut the bottom third off the bookmark, because I thought about doing that to mine, but I decided.
What's wrong with the bookmark?
Absolutely, there you go. That's the bookmark. Perfect. Absolutely perfect, Jeff. Perfect. So. A couple of other things that I picked up from the book. One thing that absolutely astounded me, this has nothing really to do with the book, it's just something that I picked up from the book, is when he did sign for them in 1977, when he walked into the dressing room, what he was called by Johnny Doyle. I didn't think they called us that way back in the 70s. I thought that was quite a new phenomenon when he called him the current bun.
I thought
that was a relatively new thing. I was astounded to find that was a 70s thing.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's probably even going back to the. I would even suggest the 60s. Well, I would say this, not as somebody that doesn't know an awful lot about the 50s with Rangers, probably the era I don't know a lot about, but the 60s, I would say that might even have been used then as well in the 60s. But yeah, that was. I took that as a sort of playful thing rather than, I didn't take anything bad out it, and it turned out Johnny Doyle ended up his best friend, and he said to me, I don't know if I actually put this in the book, but he would whistle when he was in the Celtic dressing room. He'd whistle Rangers songs.
No, that's not in the book. No,
I didn't think that, but he said he would whistle.
Doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Aye. As soon as they called him a current bunny, he would start whistling Rangers songs, and I thought, and it was all banter, So at the end of the day, these guys. I've seen it heard it so many times from so many Rangers players and Celtic players that they all socialised with each other, out in the town.
Yeah.
The Rangers players and Celtic players getting out in the town together, getting drunk. So, is it a job? I think nowadays, which is something a bugbear of mine, it's a job for the players, because none of the players really have Rangers at heart. They might say they love the badge and all the rest of it. But back in the day, you can't deny that these guys were Rangers men. They were and they came from all over Scotland. Whereas Celtic's big thing was that I think the Lisbon Lions were all born or lived within 14 miles of Celtic, Celtic Park. But the Rangers players most of them came from Edinburgh, came from Aberdeen. Colin Jackson and Dave Smith for Aberdeen, and Wally Matheson and stuff like that for Fife. And there was one or two for Glasgow, but they really loved the club, and they didn't play for the wages, because the wages weren't great, as you read in the book, So it was the love of the club, and to me that breaks my heart when I see that's missing. Maybe it's just modern life, modern world, but I still think it should be there. I still think we should be a football club rather than a business. I think we should be supporters rather than customers. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I'm 100% with you. Again, we're both kind of over the older side of the support. You know what I mean? And I'm with you 100%. We should be we're supporters before we're customers. For me, that's what's missing. You know what I mean? To go completely away from the book, off on a tangent. We did a weekly Rangers women's show last night, myself and Brian and the two girls that do it with us, and somebody asked a question, and we misperceived the question. It was about the family feel of the women's team, the Rangers women's team, and they meant the players as opposed to the supporters, because we thought they were talking about supporters, the guy at the time. And he says the players, and half of the women's team are Rangers fans, and they are genuinely bona fide Rangers fans.
Is that right? Aye.
And I think that makes a difference. You know what I mean? I think it does make a difference, but it's in its infancy compared to what the men's game is now, and it's light years behind and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if there's a single Rangers supporter in the Rangers first team squad. You know what I mean? There's hardly a Scotsman in the Rangers first team squad, so you find it quite difficult. You know what I mean?
That's why I would have when I was at worked for the Paisley Express, and I got a call to go down to St. Park one Friday, and they just signed Lawrence Shankland, I think in loan for Aberdeen, if memory serves me right. And there was no other journalists there, and it was Friday at 5-6 o'clock. So I went down to St. Park and to interview Lawrence Shankland. And I goes in, and it's Lawrence and his dad that are there. And he was getting his photographs taken at the time with our photographer. So I started speaking to his dad, and I says, "Oh, what is the boy? Is he a St. Mirren fan? Is he a Aberdeen?" He went, No. Just supports one team, and that's Rangers. Between you and me, who do you support, St. Mirren? I went, "No, Rangers." He went, "No, he's big Rangers man." He says he's just Rangers staff. So that's why when I see, and I don't care what Philippe Clement thinks, but when I see a guy scoring 30 goals, did he score 30 plus goals in 2 seasons in a row or something for Hearts? Was that right? Roughly. And I see that, I think to myself, surely that guy can score as many goals as although Dessers does score goals, don't get me wrong, but surely that boy, I mean, he's got it in here, and that's got to be worth a goalie a start. That's got to be worth something. You look at Celtic sometimes, and they always seem to have somebody that loves Celtic in their team, you know. And I think we're never going to go back to the days when we had 11 pure blue noses in the team. But even if we could have 1 or 2, Wolf, it would be a start.
Yeah, it would be a massive start. But hopefully we'll start bringing through some of the young kids, the promising youths that they keep telling us we've got, and we have got them that are Rangers fans. Hopefully we can start seeing some of them in the team.
Anyway, we digress.
Absolutely, we could talk about this all night. I mean, particularly in light of what happened at the weekend. I went off on one on our main pod last night. I was just a ranting mess. It was. I don't even know what I said. I haven't even got a clue what I said. I know I was ranting. Brilliant. And I believe bits of it have been clipped up and it's all over Celtic social media, but I really don't care. You know what I mean? So, but the reason we're here today and tonight is obviously to promote your new book, The Alfie Conn Story. What's it all about? This one here, it's behind you as well.
Yep.
You're nicely positioned that you can always see two of the three main clubs that you played for, which is well done by you.
That was just by chance.
Aye, of course it was. Absolutely.
The two main clubs you played for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's honestly, folks, it's an absolutely brilliant book. I'm not just saying that because Jeff's here, and I've known Jeff a long time. It's a brilliant book. It's well worth £25. There is a donation going to motor neuron disease. You'll get a free bookmark if you buy it off Jeff through his website, which he's going to remind us what it is.
jeffholmes.co.uk. It's jeffholmes.co.uk, and my email address for anybody that doesn't want to go on the internet and see it is jeff.holmes4@btinternet.com, and I'll respond right away and arrange for a signed book and all that stuff. But it's it's going really well. I took a couple of hundred books, and I've got 25 left or something, 25, 30 left. So that's what I've sold personally. But there's obviously a lot being sold in other outlets. I mean, the likes of W.H. Smith, Waterstones, Amazon. It's great. People will go and buy the book. It's great that people are buying the book, but the financial gain to Alfie or the charity is negligible through Waterstones, W.H. Smith and Amazon and things like that, because the Amazon just take 60% of the cover price or whatever it is they take, something like that. And then you've got Waterstones taking, I honestly think we get £1 or £2 from each book sale. You think it's 25 quid, it's ridiculous. And to me, it's genuinely about less money going to the charity.
Yeah. And
less money going Alfie's way. I don't care. But when you have a target and when you have a goal and when you have a mission to do it for a charity like MND Scotland, then you naturally want to raise as much as you can. And that's why I would say, if you can, buy the book through me, simply because more money will go to charity and more money won't go to Amazon, So it's win-win. And the bookmarks most of the bookmarks nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And most, like I say, for me, it was a nice bonus for me to find out that some of the money was going to MND Scotland because I said earlier it means a lot to me. You know what I mean? It means a lot to the Rangers support because of what happened to poor Fernando Rickson. You know what I mean? That's what brought it into the consciousness of the Rangers support, generally speaking. You know,
yeah, definitely, certainly for me, it was. Yeah,
you know, and
it
the
was
fact
Fernando.
that Alfie lost his good lady to that as well. Just just it's heartbreaking. It really is. It's really hard. The fact that it took you talking to him 4 or 5 times to get stuff about his wife out of him.
Oh,
you know, the fact the only chapter he's read is the last chapter, that says a lot about what he thinks of you as an author, because he hasn't said, look, I'm reading this before we do anything with it. You know what I mean? He's left it up to you, and it's written as I said, as if he's speaking it. But the fact that all he's read is a chapter about his wife, and it's actually touching, and the way you've done it as well for me, that's not really mentioned until the very end. You know, there's no hints to it all the way through. No. It's just at the very end this comes in, so it doesn't detract from his story, but it is all about his life. It's not just Alfie Conn, the footballer. You know what I mean? It's not just blowing smoke at you. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Brian's just messaged me and says he's got one more question. So if you ask it quickly, Brian, before I let Jeff go, and I put it in the chat rather than put it on my phone. So I think there should be another question hopefully coming through from Brian just very shortly, if he can wind himself up. So what have you got in the pipeline then, Jeff, apart from your book about the team that won 18 out of 18 in the 1888-99 season?
It's that's nearly done. That's nearly done. I was finding out a lot about R.C. Hamilton last night, so that was good. Sadly, he was gassed during the First World War, so that was not so good for him. But it gives the book a bit meat on the bones, you know, a bit of context, and it's probably going to be 2 books. Well, it's probably going to be book 1's probably going to be about the season, because it was quite a momentous season for Rangers. Not only did we win every league game, which is still a world record, we moved to the new Ibrox, the current Ibrox. We became a public limited liability company, which was massive for us because we had to stay in touch with Celtic. And then that'll all be in the first book. And then the second book will be all the biographies of all the players and William Walton and guys like that. There were maybe about 6,000 words on each of them, so it'll be quite extensive. And then I'll batter on with the Jimmy Spears book, who's a particular favourite of mine because he started at Maryhill, went to Rangers and went to Bradford City. In fact, he's the only time Bradford City ever won the FA Cup, he scored the winning goal, but then obviously he died at Passchendaele, you know, in Belgium. So very, very, very sad.
We've got Brian's question. He asked it a while ago. I was going to flip over this because I know the answer to the question. Is there a bit in the book about how he's perceived by Rangers fans nowadays because he played for the other side?
No, absolutely not.
No, because there's no point in doing that. There's absolutely no point in doing that. Because for me, he's perceived differently by different generations of Rangers fans.
Of course.
Because there'll be guys that probably when he signed for Celtic were young men and probably gave him heaps of grief because he signed for them. Right? Nowadays wouldn't, because they're older, they know better.
That's right. And
there'll be younger guys who will say, well, he played with them, not interested in anything he does or anything he says, that don't know anything about it. You know what I mean? It's a difficult one. I mean, like you said earlier, he gets it every single day. And I would imagine a lot of the time it's people joking with him. But other times people will be quite serious. So it's, you know what I mean, it's must be a difficult one to touch on.
But that's a good point. That's a very good point, Will, because even though you might say it to him, you wouldn't be. You might say it to him, I might say it to him once in joke. If somebody keeps saying things to you all the time, it just erodes your brain and you're just like, this is just non-stop. And there's a couple of good examples in the book, isn't there, about him being at Ibrox and coming face to face with disgruntled fans and stuff. So I don't overload it with that, but just give a couple of examples about that. And you know, and I tried not to overload any part of his career too much and because there was so much to write about, as you know. It was a case of just trying to get everything in, but just give it the space it deserves, but don't overdose people on it, you know.
Yeah, because that's not what it's all about.
No,
you know what I mean? You know. So anyway, Jeff, I didn't think we'd be here for an hour. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. The book, honestly, folks, the book is fantastic. It's Jeff Holmes, the Alfie Conn story. What's it all about? JeffHolmes.co.uk is the website. Jeff.Holmes
Jeff.Holmes 4.
4.
Jeff.Holmes number 4 at btinternet.com. Will we have a wee competition for a...
Okay, we're going to have a wee competition. You ask the question, and we'll pick something out of the book, because I'll know the answer.
Oh, right, so will I set a question?
You can.
Right, okay. Alfie Conn's dad was a big hero for one team in particular. Who was that team?
Okay, there we go.
So and I'll give you a clue. It's not Gallifreyan Rovers, okay? So no, that's it, and I can, if people write, and you can just let me know who wins, and I'll send it off to them. It's a signed copy with a bookmark.
What to do with that? People are putting it in the comments. I don't want it, and I don't want it in the comments. No, what to do is if you tweet it to the Rangers Rabble Twitter account, then we'll pick them up. We'll do a random draw in a few days. We'll give it time for YouTube to see this as well.
Yeah,
and we'll do after the week, early part of the week. We'll do a random draw. We'll get the details. I'll get the details to you, Jeff, and you can find the book up to the winner. So thank you very much for that. Absolutely tremendous.
No problem, Wolf. No problem.
Once again, thank you very much for your time. Good luck in your projects that you're working on. Look forward to speaking to you about them, because we will speak to you about them. I'm absolutely fascinated in these books about the Victorian teams. That period of Rangers fascinates me as well. It really, really does. So again, folks, the Alfie Conn story. What's it all about? Go on to Jeff's website. All his books are there. They're all good. The Russian one available from the Rangers Former Players Benevolent Fund through Colin Stewart at Rangers. It's only a £5. It's an absolutely fascinating read on a tour that a lot of people aren't even aware of, to be perfectly honest. Russia. It's very, very good. So
and it gives a nice feeling of the times as well. 62 it gives a feeling about how the world was at that point, the Cold War and stuff like that. So, and if I could just say, if people want to get in touch with me on Twitter, can I say that, Wilf?
Absolutely.
It's Jeff H, JEFF H, 1960. Is that it? God, I can't even remember how you do it. Oh, you've got at Jeff H 1960. JEFF H 1960. I've not been on Twitter for a while, so I forgot my handle. But that's it. So you can message me on Twitter as well, or drop me or just leave a comment or something there, and we'll sort the book out. But I appreciate everybody that buys the book, and I really appreciate you inviting me on, Wilf, because I've really enjoyed it tonight.
Delighted to have you, Jeff. And as I say, folks, the question to win a signed copy of the book. Alfie's dad, Alfie Conn Sr., was a hero at a club that's not Rangers. Who's the club? Tweet the answers to at Rangers Rabble on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days, and we'll pick a winner at the start of the week, and Jeff will fire a book off to you. So
great.
Okay. Right, Jeff, thanks very much again. Cheers, folks.
Pleasure, Will. Thank you.
You're getting away with it all, mister. Getting away with it all, mister. That's the living. You're getting away with it all, mister. Getting away with it all.